Hi, I'm Helena, 28 years old. And despite the fact that I manage a tech enterprise valued at millions, I continue to commute to work by bus. My parents have never truly grasped why I opt to live modestly, particularly when I appear at our family gatherings wearing jeans while my cousins display their luxury brand clothing. When Blake teasingly questioned if I was still utilizing public transportation, I was taken aback to notice my vintage timepiece capture my dad's focus. The look on his face transformed everything that night. If you're viewing this, please drop a comment about your location. Don't forget to tap that like button and subscribe to discover how I succeeded in quieting a room packed with relatives fixated on social standing with merely a gesture of my wrist. Being raised as the daughter of Thomas and Eleanor Hayes signified I went to elite private institutions, took holidays in the Hamptons, and enjoyed every material benefit a child could desire. My father constructed his property empire from nothing, converting a modest inheritance into substantial wealth through dedication and sharp business sense. My mother originated from an affluent background with her family surname adorning structures throughout Manhattan. They provided me with every chance, but they also instilled in me the importance of creating my own journey in life. Unlike my cousins who were content to depend on family fortune and relationships, I was resolved to build something significant on my own conditions. Following my graduation from Harvard Business School, I astonished everyone by rejecting a six-figure employment opportunity at my father's corporation. Instead, I accepted a junior position at a faltering tech startup. My father was confused but encouraging, while my mother was devastated, certain I was squandering my capabilities. My cousins, particularly Blake, believed I had gone insane. "You could be operating a Porsche by next year if you joined Uncle Thomas," Blake remarked when I revealed my choice. "Instead, you'll be preparing coffee for some tech enthusiasts who will probably file for bankruptcy in 6 months. I merely grinned and informed him that there are more valuable things in existence than operating a Porsche. He stared at me as if I had communicated in an unfamiliar language. The startup represented everything I had hoped for. It was dynamic, creative, and populated with exceptional minds working together to develop something revolutionary. I thrived in that environment, rapidly rising to the role of product manager within 18 months. That's when I encountered Victor, a 65-year-old experienced entrepreneur who served as our company advisor. Victor turned into the mentor I urgently required. While my father had instructed me about commerce and principle, Victor showed its real-world implementation in the tech sector. He was brilliant, compassionate, and entirely unimpressed by status displays despite his considerable fortune. He operated a 10-year-old Toyota, with the same 3 pullovers repeatedly, and lived in a modest residence. Yet he had founded 3 unicorn startups, and was deeply respected across Silicon Valley. "Genuine wealth is invisible," he once shared with me. "The instant you feel compelled to demonstrate to people how prosperous you are, you have already missed the point of understanding what prosperity actually means." I internalized his worldview like a sponge. When our startup was purchased by a tech corporation 2 years afterward, I used my buyout capital to establish my own enterprise, Klein Dynamics, naming it as a tribute to Victor. He was touched by the recognition and became my initial investor and board participant. The first 2 years were exhausting. I worked 18-hour shifts, resided in a cramped studio flat, and channeled every dollar back into the business. I developed a system that allowed small enterprises to rival corporate titans through information analysis and focused marketing approaches. The possibilities were enormous, but the early phase was filled with obstacles, unsuccessful presentations, and diminishing funds. Through it all, Victor stood by my side. When other investors grew nervous, he remained calm. When I doubted my capabilities, he reminded me of my ambition. And when I was close to surrendering, he appeared at my apartment with takeout and told stories of his own initial setbacks. On my 27th birthday, after a particularly demanding quarter that still revealed promising indicators, Victor presented me a small container. "This has traveled with me through 3 enterprises 2 economic downturns and 1 very visible failure, he stated. Now it should be yours. Inside rested his watch. It wasn't ostentatious or obviously costly, but it radiated sophistication in its understated design, a Victor original from the exclusive collection he created as a passion project before achieving recognition in tech. I identified it immediately from articles I had encountered about him. However, I was oblivious of its actual value. "Victor, I cannot take this," I protested. "This is valued at more than my enterprise." He laughed. "Right now, perhaps, but not for much longer," he said as he secured it around my wrist. "Promise me you'll display it when you need to recall your worth, not what others believe it to be." 3 months afterward, Victor suddenly died from a cardiac arrest. I was devastated. The watch became my most treasured item, not for its monetary value, but because it connected me to him. I displayed it regularly as I guided the company through its expansion period without his guidance. In the years after his passing, client dynamics had soared. We secured significant clients, grew to 3 global offices, and were highlighted in every important tech magazine. I was selected for the Forbes 30 Under 30 roster, and purchase proposals started arriving. Throughout it all, I maintained Victor's approach of quiet achievement. I still lived in my simple apartment, though I had moved up to a 1-bedroom. I continued to rely on public transit and shunned the spotlight whenever possible. My extended family remained mostly unaware of my accomplishments. They knew I had started my own business, but I never discussed its expansion during family events, choosing to hear my cousins boast about their recent purchases instead. My parents honored my discretion, though my father sometimes reviewed my company's public documents and appeared progressively impressed by what he found. The annual Hayes family dinner is a custom that originated with my grandparents and has been maintained by my father and his brother, my Uncle Henry. It occurs at my parents' property in Connecticut, a magnificent mansion that has been featured in design magazines. Every year, the entire extended family gathers together to dine, drink, and unavoidably compare their achievements and belongings. Uncle Henry, my father's younger brother, has always maintained a rivalrous dynamic with him. While my father accumulated his fortune through hard work and strategic choices, Uncle Henry married into wealth and used his social ties to obtain a senior position at a prestigious financial institution. Their offspring reflect their parents' principles. My cousins, headed by Blake, measure achievement by the labels they wear and the vehicles they operate. Family dinners have evolved into exhibitions of their newest status markers. As I prepared for this year's dinner, I thought about Victor and what he might express about my anxieties regarding confronting my family. I could practically hear his gentle laughter and his words of encouragement. "Let them display their Porsches. You are building something lasting." With that consideration, I selected my typical outfit: dark jeans, a simple white blouse, subtle makeup, and Victor's watch. I requested an Uber and traveled to Connecticut, ready to endure another evening of implicit and explicit criticism. The Uber driver whistled quietly as we passed through the decorative iron gates of my parents' property. "Impressive place," he commented, navigating along the lengthy, curving driveway bordered by immaculately manicured topiaries. I acknowledged, my gaze on the recognizable Georgian mansion emerging in the distance, its limestone facade glowing in the early evening light. Coming back here always triggered a complicated blend of emotions within me. I felt admiration for what my parents had achieved, sentimentality for my youth, and a touch of unease with the lavishness. "You can leave me off at the entrance," I directed the driver as we approached the circular driveway. A row of premium cars was already positioned in a conspicuous location. I immediately spotted Blake's new Ferrari positioned just perfectly so that it was impossible to miss. Next to it sat Uncle Henry's Bentley, my cousin Amber's Range Rover, and several other high-end automobiles belonging to various family members. My Uber, a practical Toyota Camry, appeared rather misplaced as it pulled up to the impressive entrance, featuring soaring columns and massive oak doors. I thanked the driver, tipped well through the application, and exited into the cool autumn atmosphere. From the edge of my vision, I detected some activity at one of the windows. Blake was watching my entrance, probably noting my transportation selection with a trace of self-satisfaction. Before I could press the bell, the imposing front door opened, revealing Santos, my parents' longtime butler. His professional manner relaxed into a genuine smile upon recognizing me. "Miss Helena, welcome back." He greeted me warmly. "Your parents are in the main salon with the other visitors." "Thank you, Santos," I responded, mirroring his smile. "How are Maria and the children?" "Very well, thank you. Diego began college this fall, the first in the household." "That's fantastic," I said, sincerely happy. I had helped Santos's son with his application compositions last year. "He's pursuing computer science." "Yes, he frequently mentions you. Your support meant everything to him." I softly squeezed his arm before passing him into the grand entrance hall, showcasing marble flooring and a dramatic staircase. The sounds of discussion and classical compositions drifted from the salon. I inhaled deeply, straightened my shoulders, and headed toward the assembly. My mother was the first to notice me. Eleanor Hayes was a captivating woman in her early 60s, appearing refined in a navy blue designer gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Her silver-highlighted dark hair was flawlessly arranged, and her bearing was exemplary. She pardoned herself from a discussion with my aunt and moved gracefully toward me. "Helena, darling," she said, ere kissing both my cheeks. She stepped back, swiftly assessing my attire with a quick glance. "You could have worn the Chanel dress I gave you for your birthday. It would have been ideal for tonight." "This is more comfortable, Mom," I replied, offering her a sincere hug. She reciprocated it, though somewhat rigidly. "You look lovely as always," she said with a sigh, though a smile emerged. "At least that blouse is silk. Come along and say hello to everyone. Your cousin Blake just secured a major account at the firm." Naturally he did. Blake's accomplishments were always showcased immediately, while mine frequently went unacknowledged. I followed behind my mother into the salon, a splendid room with lofty ceilings, vintage furniture, and walls decorated with invaluable art. Approximately 20 family members were already there, assembled in small groups, champagne glasses in hand. My father was engrossed in discussion with Uncle Henry near the fireplace, but he looked up as I entered. Thomas Hayes was tall and refined, his previously dark hair now predominantly gray. Unlike my mother, who completely embraced the privileges of affluence, my father displayed a certain moderation. Yes, he operated luxury vehicles and possessed multiple properties, but there was always a trace of awkwardness about him at these ceremonial family occasions, as if he hadn't entirely abandoned his middle-class origins. "There's my girl," he said, separating from his brother and traversing the room to give me a genuine embrace. His hug was affectionate and heartfelt, carrying the recognizable aroma of the cologne he wore during my childhood. "How was the journey up?" "Fine, Dad." "No traffic," I answered. He nodded, examining my face intently. "You look exhausted, working too hard." "Probably," I admitted, "but things are progressing well." "Glad to hear it," he dropped his voice. "Your latest quarterly report was remarkable. That contract with Johnson and Williams was quite an accomplishment." I blinked in astonishment. "You noticed that?" He smiled faintly. "I keep tabs on you even if you think I don't." He squeezed my shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Helena. You're creating something on your own terms." Before I could respond, Uncle Henry approached with a cocktail in hand. "Helena, there you are. We were beginning to think you had forgotten about us accomplished people." His laugh was slightly too boisterous, and his smile didn't entirely reach his eyes. "Hello, Uncle Henry," I replied, accepting his brief hug. "How are things at Westfield Financial?" "Booming. Absolutely booming. We just purchased a boutique firm in Boston, adding $2 billion to our portfolio management. He took a large gulp of his drink. But enough about me. How is your little startup doing? Still surviving? My father frowned somewhat at his brother's patronizing tone, but I simply smiled. We're managing. Thanks for asking. Good, good. Persistence is crucial. He patted my arm in a condescending manner. Blake is somewhere around here. He was promoted to junior partner last month, the youngest in the firm's history. That's wonderful, I said with as much enthusiasm as I could generate. I'll be sure to congratulate him. As if called by his name, Blake materialized at his father's side. My cousin was 32, conventionally attractive in the manner of men who dedicate too much time at exclusive fitness centers and premium barbershops. His suit was obviously custom-tailored, and his watch was ostentatiously diamond-studded. "Cousin Helena," he said, ere kissing near my cheek. "Love the minimalist look, very authentic." "Blake," I responded with a nod. "Congratulations on becoming junior partner." He adjusted his already straight tie. "Thanks. The Ferrari outside is my celebration present to myself. 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. Impressive, I said, though I couldn't have cared less. Victor's watch suddenly felt weighty on my wrist, a reminder of what genuinely mattered. My cousin Amber approached next, her high heels clicking against the marble flooring. "Helena, oh my God, it's been ages." She embraced me with the excessive enthusiasm of someone who has already consumed several glasses of champagne. "I love what you've done with your hair. So natural." Amber was Blake's younger sister, 26, and already on her second spouse. She was nominally employed in public relations, but her position appeared to primarily involve attending charity galas and posting updates about them on social media. "Thanks, Amber. You look fantastic." "Just got back from Capri," she replied, flipping her luxuriously highlighted hair. "Alessandro has a villa there. You should visit. 6 bedrooms, an infinity pool, and private beach access." She leaned in closer. "We're thinking about buying our own place nearby. Nothing too extravagant, just a modest €3 million retreat." I nodded courteously as she detailed the amenities of Italian luxury real estate. Over her shoulder, I observed my other cousins engaged in comparable discussions. Justin was displaying his new Rolex to his sister Madison, who was busy browsing through pictures of her recent Maldives vacation on her phone. Aunt Pamela was informing my mother about her recently renovated house in the Hamptons, emphasizing the difficulty of locating reliable contractors who understood the importance of imported Italian marble. The entire room hummed with these exchanges of possessions and achievement, a recognizable symphony of competitive affluence. I stood amid it all, wearing Victor's watch, thinking about the conference call I had scheduled for the following morning with a nonprofit organization eager to utilize our platform to connect homeless individuals with employment opportunities. The striking contrast between these two worlds made me feel as though I was traveling through parallel universes. A staff member emerged to announce that dinner was prepared, offering a greatly appreciated interruption. As we moved toward the formal dining room, my father walked beside me. "You seem quiet tonight," he observed. "Just a bit exhausted," I answered. "The end of the quarter is always demanding." He nodded and then quietly added, "I read about your housing initiative in the Times business section, providing your platform to affordable housing advocates without charge. That was generous of you." I looked at him in surprise. He rarely mentioned specific details about my work. "It felt like the right thing to do," I replied simply. A glimmer of approval seemed to appear in his eyes. "Your grandfather would have responded similarly. He always remembered his origins." He took a moment to pause. "I haven't forgotten either, regardless of what Henry may think." Just as I was about to respond, we entered the dining room where a table set for 24 gleamed with crystal silverware and refined china. Name cards indicated our seating arrangements, and I wasn't surprised to discover myself seated between Blake and Madison. Another family dinner, was officially commencing. The first course was served promptly. Seared scallops garnished with a citrus reduction, beautifully presented on white porcelain plates. The family settled into their seats. Wine glasses were filled and the performance began. These dinners always followed a predictable pattern. Achievements would be casually mentioned. Acquisitions would be subtly introduced. Status would be established and reinforced. "Madison, that necklace is stunning," Aunt Pamela remarked to my cousin across the table. "Is it new?" Madison delicately touched the diamond pendant at her neck. "Oh, this. Yes. Thomas surprised me after he completed the Peterson merger. It's a 12-carat cushion cut. We had it custom designed by that jeweler in the city, the one who works with all the celebrities." "How thoughtful," my mother replied. "Speaking of mergers, Henry, I heard Westfield is considering that firm in Chicago." Uncle Henry wiped his mouth with his napkin before responding. "Yes, negotiations are approaching completion. Blake has been instrumental in the due diligence process." All eyes turned to Blake, who wore a humble expression that seemed practiced, saying, "Just doing my job." "But the acquisition will boost our annual revenue by approximately 30%. We're also planning to expand our presence in the Pacific Rim next." Uncle Henry continued, "Blake has always possessed a talent for business. He gets that from me." "Of course," my father raised an eyebrow, but chose to stay silent, sipping his wine instead. I was conscious that he was thinking about how Uncle Henry had nearly driven his first investment firm to insolvency before he married into the Westfield family and obtained a senior position at his father-in-law's company. "And Justin, dear, how is the new position at Goldman?" my mother inquired, redirecting the attention to another cousin. Justin adjusted his tie, stating that it was both demanding and fulfilling. "We just closed a $4 billion deal with a Saudi investment group. I'll be traveling to Riyadh next month on the company jet." The conversation continued in this fashion as the second course was delivered. Roasted beet, salad with goat cheese and candied walnuts. I sat quietly responding to direct questions, but otherwise remaining on the periphery of the discussion. Blake, however, seemed determined to draw me into the dialogue. "So, Helena," he said, swirling his expensive Bordeaux, "how is the entrepreneurial life treating you? Still operating out of that co-working space downtown?" "Actually, we relocated to our own offices last year," I responded, "in the Flatiron district." "Oh, that must be expensive." "Those rents are astronomical," he remarked. I nodded noncommittally. "It works for us." "And how many employees do you have now?" He pressed. "Still just you and those 2 programmers?" He noted. "We've expanded a bit." Blake exchanged a knowing glance with his father. "Well, startups are always risky. 90% fail within the first year. The fact that you've survived this long is quite remarkable." "Thank you for the vote of confidence," I replied dryly. Aunt Pamela leaned in, her expression one of feigned concern. "Darling, if you ever need help, the family is here for you. There's no shame in acknowledging when it's time to pursue something else. I'm certain your father could find a suitable role for you at Hayes Development." I felt a wave of irritation, but maintained a calm expression. "That's very kind, Aunt Pamela, but we're doing fine." "Of course, dear," she said, patting my hand in a manner that suggested she didn't believe me. "I just worry. A young woman should focus on security and preparing for the future. Take Madison, for example. She and Thomas recently purchased that beautiful brownstone in Brooklyn Heights." Madison was beaming with happiness. "The renovations are quite costly, but it will definitely be worth it. We're adding a wine cellar and a home theater. You should come over once it's all finished, Helena. It might give some ideas for you." I managed a tight smile. "That sounds wonderful." Uncle Roger interrupted from further down the table. "Entrepreneurship is admirable, but there's definitely something to be said for the stability that comes with an established corporation. My college roommate went into the startup world. He was a brilliant guy with what appeared to be a solid idea. He poured every penny he had into it. Now he's managing a branch of Bank of America in New Jersey. Several family members nodded knowingly at this cautionary tale. I remember when you first talked about starting your own business, Blake said, cutting into his perfectly cooked salmon as the main course was served. What was it again? Some sort of data analysis for small businesses. That's right, I replied, taking a bite of my meal. It seems like a narrow market, he noted. Small businesses generally don't have much budget for that kind of service. Now, if you were targeting enterprise clients, he trailed off, shaking his head slightly. We have a diverse client base, I stated simply. Blake wasn't deterred. I just worry about the long-term sustainability, especially in this economy. Venture capital has substantially decreased since interest rates rose. I thought about the $20 million in funding we secured last quarter and the proposals from 3 major VC firms that I was currently considering. We're managing just fine. My father cleared his throat. Helena's company is actually performing quite well. I've been impressed with their growth metrics. Blake looked surprised, but quickly recovered his composure. Well, good for her. It's important to follow your passion, even if it requires some lifestyle adjustments. Madison immediately picked up on his tone. Absolutely, Helena. I truly respect your commitment to simplicity. It must feel so liberating to live like ordinary people. I noticed my father observing me, his expression indecipherable. My mother appeared uncomfortable, clearly caught between defending her daughter and avoiding any sign of family tension at her meticulously arranged dinner. I responded calmly, stating that there is honor in living within one's means. This was something Victor always emphasized. Victor? Uncle Henry inquired. Victor, I clarified. He was my mentor, and he died last year. Oh, the tech guy, Blake remarked dismissively. I read about him. Made a fortune in software or something, right? Lived like a pauper despite being worth billions. Quite odd. Hearing Victor described this way triggered a surge of anger within me, but I maintained my composure. He believed that genuine wealth should be measured by the impact one makes, not by material possessions. Blake scoffed. Easy to say when you have billions in the bank. I bet he still flew private and owned properties all over the world. Actually, he flew commercial and had just one modest home in Palo Alto. I corrected him. He donated most of his wealth into his foundation for educational access. Well, to each their own, Blake shrugged. But there's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your labor. Life is short. What's the point of success if you can't show it off a little? As the conversation shifted to Madison's upcoming trip to Paris, I felt the weight of Victor's watch on my wrist. I reflected on his quiet confidence, his genuine interest in people, regardless of their status, and his belief that true success is measured by the lives you elevate, not the possessions you accumulate. The difference between his values and those being expressed around this table was stark. My daydream was interrupted by my cousin Amber, who was enthusiastically describing her new Mercedes. The interior is completely customized. It took 3 months to get it just right, but when you're driving through the Hamptons, it's worth it to make the proper impression. Blake nodded in agreement. Image is everything in our world. The right car, the right address, the right connections. It all communicates your place in the hierarchy. He turned to me with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Speaking of which, Helena, I noticed you arrived by Uber today. Still taking the bus around the city too? The table fell momentarily silent, all eyes turning toward me. The question hung in the air, its condescension unmistakable. I saw my mother's embarrassed expression, my aunt's poorly hidden pity, my uncle's smug satisfaction at his son's pointed inquiry. But it was my father's reaction that surprised me. His attention had shifted from Blake's face to my wrist, where Victor's watch was partially visible beneath the cuff of my blouse. His eyes widened slightly, his fork pausing halfway to his mouth. He was staring at the watch with an expression of stunned recognition. Blake, misinterpreting my father's reaction as embarrassment on my behalf, pressed his advantage. I mean, there's frugality, and then there's unnecessary hardship. Public transportation in New York can be so unreliable, not to mention the types of people you encounter. I opened my mouth to respond, but at that moment my father found his voice. Is that what I think it is? My father asked, his voice cutting through Blake's commentary. He was still staring at my wrist with an intensity that drew everyone's attention. I glanced down at Victor's watch, suddenly self-conscious. What do you mean? Your watch, he said, setting down his fork deliberately. May I see it? The table had gone silent. Blake looked confused by this unexpected interruption of his moment of triumph. I hesitated, then extended my arm across the table. My father leaned forward, examining the timepiece with growing amazement. This is a Victor original, he said quietly, from his limited first collection. Uncle Henry frowned. The tech entrepreneur who died last year, he made watches. Before he ventured into the tech industry, my father shared, still examining my watch. He started as a horologist, crafting a small collection of handmade timepieces before launching his first business. Only 50 pieces were ever produced. He glanced at me, his face showing a blend of surprise and newfound respect. How did you come to own this? All attention shifted to me. The atmosphere at the table changed dramatically. Blake's previous teasing lingered awkwardly. Victor gave it to me, I replied simply. Before he passed away, he was my mentor and an early investor of my company. My father leaned back in his chair. Do you realize what this is worth? I nodded. I understand it's valuable, but that's not the reason I wear it. That, my father remarked, now addressing everyone at the table, is a $2 million watch. Possibly even more due to its provenance, especially since Klein's passing has made his collection even more sought after. A collective gasp swept through the table. Blake's jaw literally dropped. Madison's fork clattered to the table. Aunt Pamela began to choke on her wine. Oh, this old thing, I said with a nonchalant shrug, slightly pulling back my sleeve to display the watch better. I wear it every day. Victor believed that beautiful items should be enjoyed, not hidden away. My father shook his head in disbelief. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. Each piece was completely handmade by Klein himself. The movement is based on a revolutionary design of his own creation. Collectors have been searching for these for years. Most are held in private collections or museums. Uncle Henry was now staring at the watch with renewed interest. $2 million on your wrist. You should get that insured, Helena. It is, I reassured him. Victor took care of that when he gave it to me. He said it was the first creation that truly meant something to him. Blake had regained enough composure to rejoin the discussion. His tone had completely changed. I had no idea you were connected to Victor Klein. He was a legend in the field. He was more than just that, I said softly. He was a friend. He believed in what I was building when very few others did. Which was precisely what? Uncle Henry inquired, his earlier skepticism now replaced with genuine curiosity. You've always been somewhat vague about your company. I took a sip of water, considering how much to reveal. Victor had always recommended strategic transparency. Perhaps it was time to share more. We developed a proprietary algorithm that helps businesses optimize their operations through predictive analytics, I explained. We initially concentrated on small businesses because they were underserved in this area, but we've grown substantially. We now work with several Fortune 500 companies, 3 major healthcare systems, and the federal government. My mother blinked in astonishment. The federal government? You never mentioned that before. The contract was completed last month, I replied. We'll be implementing our platform across multiple agencies over the next year. It's our largest contract to date. How large? Blake asked, unable to contain his curiosity. I met his gaze directly. 900 million over 5 years. Another stunned silence engulfed the table. My father looked at me with open pride. Now my mother seemed completely bewildered. But you still live in that tiny apartment in the city? She said, confusion evident in her voice. And you take the bus? I smiled. I enjoy my apartment. It's close to our offices, and I can walk to my favorite coffee shop. As for public transport, it's efficient and better for the environment. Victor took the bus every day of his life, even after he became a billionaire. A true Klein disciple, my father murmured, looking at me with newfound comprehension. Blake was struggling to reconcile this new information with his previous perception of me. So, your company is successful then? I nodded. Very much so. We're currently valued at $1.88 billion after our last funding round. I maintain majority ownership. Uncle Henry choked on his drink, and Aunt Pamela's eyes widened to an almost comical degree. Madison was typing frantically on her phone, likely searching for details about my company. You're a billionaire? Blake asked, stunned. On paper, potentially, I explained. Most of my wealth is tied to the company's valuation. I take a reasonable salary and live within my means. But why keep it a secret? Amber inquired, genuinely puzzled. If I had that level of success, everyone would know about it. I thought of Victor and his quiet confidence, his lack of concern in impressing others. True success isn't defined by others' opinions of you, but by the impact you make and the problems you solve. Our platform has helped thousands of small businesses in surviving and thriving. It's improved healthcare delivery in underserved areas. That's more significant than the valuation. My father nodded slowly. Klein's philosophy: focus on the work, not the rewards. I always admired that about him. Blake seemed unable to process this new information. His entire worldview, which had placed me at the bottom of the family hierarchy, had been flipped upside down in just a few minutes. But the clothes you wear, the way you live. Our choices, I completed his thought. Just as your choices reflect your values. Victor taught me that we reveal our true selves not through our words, but through our priorities. The dinner continued, but the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Family members who had barely acknowledged me before were now seeking reasons to engage in conversation. Questions about my company, about Victor, about my future plans came from all directions. Throughout it all, I maintained my calm demeanor, neither boasting about this revelation nor indulging in their suddenly heightened interest. As dessert was being served, Blake leaned closer, his voice low enough for only me to hear. I owe you an apology, Helena. I've been condescending and rude. I assumed that because you didn't display your success, you had none to show. I observed him for a moment, looking beyond the expensive suit, and refined my charm to the insecurity lurking beneath. Success holds different meanings for different individuals, Blake. I don't judge your decisions. I would appreciate the same respect in return. He nodded, appearing somewhat humbled. The watch is truly remarkable. Klein must have held you in high regard. I gently touched the timepiece. It serves as a daily reminder of what truly matters. Not its worth, but what it represents: craftsmanship, integrity, and the creation of something meaningful that endures. As I spoke these words, I noticed my father watching me from across the table, a contemplative expression on his face. For perhaps the first time, he was seeing me not as his little girl in need of protection or guidance, but as a woman who had carved her own path and achieved success on her own terms. In that moment of acknowledgement, I felt a shift between us, a new foundation of mutual respect beginning to form. The watch that had once been Victor's quiet companion was now telling my story, revealing truths I had kept hidden, not out of shame, but from a desire to be valued for who I am rather than what I possess. As the evening progressed, I found myself grateful for its subtle presence on my wrist, a tangible connection to the mentor who had shaped not only my business philosophy, but my approach to life itself. As the dinner plates were cleared and coffee was poured, the conversation naturally returned to my watch and its former owner. Uncle Henry, who had been unusually quiet for the last few minutes, finally expressed what many were clearly wondering. "I still can't comprehend that Victor Klein was your mentor," he remarked, stirring cream into his coffee. "He was notoriously selective about his time and investments. How did that relationship come to be?" All eyes turned to me once more. Even the staff paused in their duties, sensing that something significant was happening at the table. My father leaned in slightly, clearly eager to hear the complete story himself. "I met Victor at Innovate Tech, the startup where I was employed after I graduated. I started working there. He was brought on as an advisor during a particularly difficult quarter. The company was burning through its funds rapidly, and our product development had stalled." "I recall that company," Blake interjected. "They were eventually acquired by Google, right?" I nodded. "For $300 million. But at that moment, we were on the verge of collapse. Victor stepped in and completely transformed our strategy. He had this ability for cutting through the noise and identifying the core value proposition. That was his brilliance," my father agreed. I once heard him speak at a conference. His clarity of thought was exceptional. "He noticed that I posed different questions than the rest of the team," I went on. "After one particularly intense meeting, he invited me to join him for coffee. We ended up talking for 3 hours. By the end of that conversation, he had offered to mentor me." "Just like that?" Uncle Henry asked with skepticism. "Victor made quick decisions when he saw potential," I clarified. "He later told me that he saw something in me that reminded him of himself at my age, a unique perspective on problem solving." My mother, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "And he invested in your company when you launched it?" "He was my first investor," I confirmed. $500,000 based on a handshake. No formal pitch, no elaborate business plan. He said he was investing in me, not just the concept. "That's not how business usually operates," Uncle Henry remarked, unable to hide his disapproval of such unconventional methods. I smiled. Victor was anything but conventional. He believed that the greatest innovations come from trust and freedom rather than rigid frameworks and endless paperwork. He provided me with that initial funding and encouraged me to create something meaningful. His only requirements were that I maintain control of the company and that I dedicate a portion of any profits to help others. "The foundation you established last year," my father remarked, nodding in understanding. "The one focused on tech education in underserved communities. That was part of your agreement with Klein." "Yes," I replied, surprised that he was aware of it, although I would have pursued it regardless. "Victor taught me that success brings responsibility." Madison, who had been browsing on her phone during our conversation, looked up with astonished eyes. According to Forbes, Klein Dynamics is projected to reach a valuation of $3 billion by the next quarter. There are rumors of an IPO. She stared at me. "You named your company after him." "It felt appropriate," I stated simply. "His philosophy underpins everything we do." "But why keep all of this so private?" Aunt Pamela inquired, vaguely gesturing towards my simple clothing. "You could be living in a penthouse, driving luxury cars, enjoying the finest things in life." I pondered how to convey a mindset so different from the one prevailing at this table. When Victor gave me this watch, he shared something I'll always remember. He said, "The moment you feel the need to prove your worth to others is the moment you've forgotten what you're truly worth. I don't need to display my success to validate it." My father nodded slowly, a newfound appreciation in his gaze. Klein always understood that true power lies in knowing your value without seeking external validation. That's why he earned respect, even from his competitors. "Exactly," I agreed. and he embodied that philosophy daily. The most important lessons he taught me had nothing to do with business tactics or technology. They revolved around integrity, purpose, and the responsibility that accompanies success. Blake, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "So, the watch must hold immense sentimental value beyond its monetary worth." "It's priceless to me," I affirmed. "Victor wore it while establishing $3 billion companies. He said it kept him grounded, reminding him of the craftsmanship and patience needed to create something of lasting value." "And now you wear it while you build your own empire," my father noted with a slight smile. I shook my head. "Not an empire, but a solution. Our platform enables businesses to operate more efficiently, which helps save jobs, reduce waste, and improve working conditions. The valuation is merely a byproduct, not the goal." Uncle Henry appeared skeptical, yet my father was nodding with increasing understanding. I could sense a shift in the way he regarded me, a newfound respect mixed with what might have been regret for not recognizing this aspect of me sooner. "The federal contract you mentioned," he remarked, "was the one announced last month aimed at modernizing agency operations and reducing governmental waste." "Yes," I affirmed. "We outperformed several major tech companies for the bid. Our solution is projected to save taxpayers approximately $12 billion over a decade while improving service delivery." "That was your company?" Uncle Henry exclaimed. "It was all over the financial news. They never mentioned your name." "I prefer to maintain a low profile," I explained. "Our work speaks for itself." "But surely now, with this level of success, you'll elevate your lifestyle," Aunt Pamela insisted, still seemingly unable to grasp my choices. "Perhaps a nicer apartment at the very least?" I smiled politely. "I enjoy where I live. It's convenient and has everything I need." Victor lived in the same modest house for 30 years, even as his net worth soared to billions. He taught me that excessive consumption rarely correlates with greater happiness. "So, you just work all the time?" Madison inquired, her tone suggesting she found the idea depressing. "I work on things that matter to me," I clarified. "But I also travel extensively, volunteer, and spend time with friends who value me for who I am, not what I possess. My life is very fulfilling." "And the foundation?" my father asked. "Tell us more about that." I felt a genuine smile spread across my face. This was something I was truly passionate about. The Klein Foundation for Technological Equity. We provide comprehensive technology education and mentorship to students from disadvantaged communities, along with full scholarships, necessary equipment, internships, and ongoing support. Our initial cohort of 50 students is currently halfway through the program. They're remarkable. 50 students, Uncle Henry remarked. "That seems modest for someone of your resources." "We're just beginning," I clarified. "The program is intensive and personalized to each individual. We aim to refine our approach before scaling up, but our vision for the next decade is to reach 10,000 students annually nationwide." 10,000 lives transformed, my father reflected. That represents a substantial legacy, far more meaningful than any material possession. I agreed. Victor understood that his true achievement lay not in the businesses he established, but in the individuals he mentored and the opportunities he created. As our coffee came to an end and the family started to migrate towards the library for after-dinner drinks, I sensed a noticeable shift in how they interacted with me. There was a new dimension in their behavior, a reassessment of my role within the family structure. It was precisely what I had always wished to avoid, being valued for my wealth rather than my character. Blake approached me as we walked down the hallway adorned with family portraits. "I feel like I need to completely rethink everything I believed about you," he confessed. "All this time I was feeling sorry for you, thinking you couldn't afford the lifestyle the rest of us have. And it turns out you could buy and sell most of us multiple times over." I paused and turned to face him directly. "That's exactly why I refrain from discussing my company's worth or my personal finances, Blake. I don't wish to be treated differently because of my financial status. It's the least interesting aspect of who I am." He appeared genuinely puzzled. "But isn't that what we all desire? Recognition of our success, acknowledgement of our accomplishments." "I receive all the recognition I need from witnessing our platform make a positive difference on the businesses that utilize it," I replied. "Watching our foundation students thrive and knowing that Victor would be proud of what I've built." Blake looked at my watch and then back at me. "I think I have much to learn from you, Helena." For the first time that night, his words felt entirely sincere. The family had migrated to the library, a room adorned with wood paneling, towering bookshelves, leather chairs, and a well-stocked bar. Conversations had fragmented into smaller clusters, and I noticed I was now being included in discussions that would have previously excluded me. Uncle Henry suddenly wanted to hear my perspectives on market trends. Aunt Pamela was keen to introduce me to her friend who ran a charitable foundation. Even Justin, who had barely acknowledged me at previous gatherings, was asking about potential investment opportunities. I took a glass of whiskey from the bar and found a quiet corner, needing a moment to process the evening's transformations. The revelation of my success had altered the family dynamics in ways that both amused and troubled me. I was still the same person I had been when I arrived by Uber hours ago, yet I was now being treated in a completely different manner. "Quite a performance," my father remarked, appearing next to me with his own drink. "Mind if I join you?" I gestured to the empty chair beside me. "Please do." He sat down, taking a thoughtful sip of his scotch. "You know, I always respected your desire for privacy and your independence, but I had no idea you were keeping so much hidden. Would it have changed anything if you had known?" I inquired. He considered this for a moment. "I've always been proud of you, Helena, but I might have been able to protect you from some of the family's condescension more effectively." "I can handle condescension," I reassured him. "It's the sudden change in treatment now that they're aware of the company valuation that bothers me more." My father nodded, immediately understanding the burden of wealth. People often focus on the money rather than the person. This is why I've always been cautious of new friends who appear after business deals are made public. Victor faced a similar issue, I mentioned. I brought this up to him once, and he shared that he could count on one hand the number of people who genuinely understood him, not just his financial status. "He seems like an extraordinary mentor," my father pondered over his drink. "I regret not having taken the time to know him better. We would occasionally cross paths at conferences, but we never had a meaningful conversation." "You would have liked him," I remarked. "He was brilliant yet humble, completely authentic." "Just like his protégé," my father noted with a slight smile. "You know, as I watched you tonight, I saw so much of my younger self in you. The determination to create something significant, to be judged based on merit rather than background." This caught me off guard. My father always appeared comfortable with his wealth and the privileges it brought. "Really? But you seem to embrace all of this." I gestured around at the lavish room. He laughed. "Your mother embraces it. I merely accommodate it because it brings her joy. But between us, I would be perfectly content in a space a quarter of this size." He leaned in closer. "Why do you think I spend so much time at the office or the fishing cabin in Vermont? All of this," he waved his hand, "it was never my motivation." "I had no idea," I confessed. "It seems we share that characteristic, the ability to keep our true selves somewhat hidden." He took another sip of his drink. "Although perhaps we've both excelled at it too much. I should have recognized what you were building. I should have acknowledged your accomplishments sooner." "You noticed enough," I reassured him. "You reviewed those quarterly filings, apparently." He smiled. "Professional curiosity at first, then genuine admiration as I realized what you were accomplishing. But I respected your privacy and your desire to succeed on your own terms. I didn't want to interfere." "I truly appreciated that," I said sincerely. "It meant everything to me to establish this on my own terms. My father's expression turned serious. The watch. It truly was Klein's personal timepiece. I nodded, extending my wrist so he could see it again in the warm glow of the library. He gave it to me on my 27th birthday, saying it had been with him through everything, and now it should be with me. My father examined it with expert eyes, noting the extraordinary craftsmanship. I had heard rumors about his collection, but few pieces have ever been photographed or documented. Most were given to close friends or family never sold. I told him that he made this one himself from scratch, spending 2 years perfecting the movement while launching his first tech company. He said that it taught him patience and precision, values that served him well. Clearly, my father looked from the watch to me, and now they serve you. Our conversation was interrupted when Blake approached, his demeanor noticeably more humble than earlier in the evening. "Excuse me, Uncle Thomas. May I borrow Helena for a moment?" My father glanced at me. I nodded, and he stood. "Of course. I should check on your mother anyway. She's probably already planning how to redecorate your childhood bedroom now that she knows you can afford priceless art." He winked at me before walking away. Blake took the empty seat. His usual confidence diminished. I wanted to properly apologize, Helena. My behavior tonight, and honestly at every family gathering for years, has been inexcusable. I studied him, trying to gauge his sincerity. Apology accepted, but I'm curious about what exactly you're apologizing for. He seemed surprised. For treating you as if you were less successful, less accomplished than me, for the comments about the bus, your lifestyle choices, all of it. And if my company was worth $10,000 instead of nearly $2 billion, would you still be apologizing? I asked mildly. Blake had the grace to look embarrassed. That's a fair question. It's the only question that matters, I pointed out, because if you're only sorry because you discovered I'm wealthier than you imagined, then you've missed the entire point. He paused for a moment, truly contemplating my words. You're right, he eventually confessed. I've been measuring success and people using all the wrong criteria. It's how I was raised, but that's no excuse. It's never too late to reassess your values, I told him, my voice softening. Victor was 40 when he had his epiphany about wealth and status. It completely transformed his outlook on life and business. I'd love to learn more about him sometime, Blake remarked, about his philosophy. If you're willing to share, I'd appreciate it, I said, somewhat surprised by his genuine interest. As Blake departed, my mother came over looking a bit flustered. Helena, sweetheart, I feel truly terrible about all the little remarks I've made over the years regarding your apartment, your clothing, your lifestyle choices. She sat down next to me, holding my hands. If I had known about your success. Mom, I gently interrupted. That's precisely why I didn't tell you. I wanted you to accept my choices for what they are, not because they carried a certain value. She appeared confused. But surely you understand that we only want what's best for you. To see you living below your means when you could have everything you desire. This is what I want, I reassured her. A meaningful business that addresses real problems. A foundation that provides opportunities for deserving students. A life centered on purpose rather than material possessions. But you could have both, she argued. Purpose and beautiful things. I touched Victor's watch. I have both. This is the most precious item I own, and I value it not for its market price, but for what it represents. The same goes for my company, my foundation, and my relationships. My mother sighed, clearly still having difficulty understanding it. Well, at the very least, you must allow me to help you find a nicer apartment, something that reflects your status. I couldn't help but laugh. Some things remain constant. I love you, Mom, just the way you are, even when you attempt to redesign my life. She gave a reluctant smile. And I love you even when you stubbornly refuse perfectly fine Chanel dresses. As the evening came to a close, I found myself having more genuine conversations than I had at any previous family gathering. Some relatives were clearly still processing the news of my success, adjusting how they perceived me. Others appeared to be reconsidering their own definitions of what achievement means. And a few, like my father, were connecting with me on a deeper level, looking past both my intentional modesty and the company valuation to see the person I had become. When it was time to leave, I requested another Uber, declining offers from several relatives to drive me to the city. My father accompanied me to the door while we waited for the car to arrive. "You've given them all something to contemplate tonight," he remarked, myself included. "That was never my intention," I replied. "I simply wanted to be seen as a person, not a financial figure, whether positive or negative." He nodded thoughtfully. Victor Klein's most significant legacy may not be his businesses or even his watches, but the lessons he imparted about the true essence of success. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "I would love to visit your office sometime, meet your team, and learn more about what you're creating." "I would appreciate that," I said, genuinely pleased with the idea. "How about next week? I could give you a tour and introduce you to everyone." "It's a plan," he agreed as my Uber arrived. "And Helena, keep wearing that watch. It's exactly where it should be." As I settled into the back seat of the car, I looked down at Victor's timepiece, reflecting on how objects, like people, hold many layers. To most of my family, the watch had transformed my status from a struggling entrepreneur to a serious contender in an instant of recognition. To me, it has always been a connection to a mentor who taught me that the true measure of success lies not in what you accumulate, but in what you give back. 3 weeks after that enlightening family dinner, I found myself in my office with a view of Madison Avenue. The office was sleek yet simple, featuring glass walls, clean lines, and functional furniture. There were no expensive artworks on display, just enlarged photos of our team collaborating with clients, serving as visual reminders of the real individuals impacted by our technology. My father's visit had exceeded my expectations. He arrived early, took a comprehensive tour, met my executive team, and asked insightful questions about our technology and business model. I felt a sense of pride as I watched him interact with our developers, genuinely interested in their work and vision. By the end of the day, he was exchanging contact details with our CTO, planning to connect him with potential partners. "You've created something extraordinary here," he told me as we gazed out over the city from our rooftop deck. "Not just the technology or the business, but the culture. These people are passionate about what they do." I responded that this was always the goal, to build something significant, something that truly matters. Now, as I reviewed the final plans for our foundation's new headquarters, I thought about how much had changed since that dinner. My daily routine remained mostly unchanged, but my relationships with my family had evolved. My father and I now spoke several times a week, discussing business strategies, foundation projects, and occasionally exploring the nuances of watch collecting, a shared interest we had discovered. My mother had finally accepted the fact that I wouldn't be moving into a penthouse anytime soon, although she had managed to slip a few designer items into my wardrobe for special occasions. The most unexpected change was in my relationship with Blake. True to his word, he reached out to explore Victor's philosophy further. We met for coffee several times, and I was impressed by his genuine desire to rethink his priorities. He even started volunteering with a local youth coding program, discovering a talent for teaching that surprised us both. The overall family dynamic had also shifted. At a cousin's birthday party the weekend before, I noticed a change away from a focus on material possessions towards more substantive conversations. Whether this transformation would last was uncertain, but it was a promising start. My assistant lightly knocked on my door, breaking my train of thought. "Your 2 o'clock is here. The high school student you mentioned." "Send her in," I replied, standing to welcome my guest. Zoe entered my office with a hint of nervousness, a 16-year-old with bright eyes and a determined posture. She had applied to our foundation's mentorship program with an impressive proposal on using data analytics to address food insecurity in urban areas. "Miss Hayes," she said, formally extending her hand. "Thank you so much for meeting with me." "Please call me Helena," I corrected her, gently motioning for her to sit down. "I was really impressed by your application, Zoe. Your approach of mapping food deserts using various data points was quite innovative." She visibly brightened at the compliment. "My family depends on food assistance programs, so I understand how challenging access can be. I want to develop solutions, not just highlight problems." As she shared her ideas, I was touched by her passion and clear sense of purpose. She reminded me of myself at her age, although she faced economic challenges I had never encountered. This was precisely the type of student Victor aimed to support, someone with a vision and determination to create real change. "How would you feel about being the first participant in our new direct mentorship program?" I asked after she concluded her presentation. "You would work directly with our data science team for one afternoon each week, working on your project with expert guidance. There's a stipend available, naturally." Her eyes widened. "Are you serious? That would change everything for me." "Completely serious," I confirmed. "Your idea has genuine potential. With the right support and resources, it could help thousands of families." As we discussed the details, I was conscious of Victor's watch on my wrist, a physical reminder of the responsibility that comes with success. By helping Zoe develop her project, I was honoring his legacy in the most meaningful way possible by creating opportunities for the next generation of problem solvers. After Zoe left, practically floating with excitement, I called my father to share the news about the new mentorship initiative. He listened attentively, then surprised me with his response. "I would like to contribute to the foundation," he said. "Not just financially, though that too if necessary, but with my time. I have experience that could be valuable to these young entrepreneurs." "That would be wonderful," I told him, genuinely touched by the offer. "The students would benefit immensely from your business expertise." "And I believe I would benefit from their fresh perspectives," he replied. "Your dinner revelation did more than just surprise the family, Helena. It prompted me to reassess how I measure success in myself and in others. I want to be part of creating something that endures beyond balance sheets and property portfolios." As we finalized plans for his involvement, I reflected on how one evening, one moment of truth had created ripples that continued to spread outward. My choice to live by Victor's philosophy had influenced not only my own life, but increasingly the lives of those around me. Later that evening, as I took the subway home, I observed the diverse faces of my fellow passengers, a construction worker still dressed in his work clothes, a nurse in scrubs, students carrying backpacks, and a woman in a business suit similar to mine. Each person has their own story and their own definition of what matters. Victor navigated the world this way, focusing on people instead of positions, valuing substance over material possessions. That night in my apartment, I removed the watch and held it in my hand, feeling its weight and significance. It had transformed into something much more than just a timepiece for me. It served as a compass for my decisions and priorities, reminding me that true wealth is found not in what you own, but in what you give back, not in how others perceive you, but in how you embody your values. The watch would never be displayed in a museum or locked away in a safe. It would accompany me through board meetings and foundation events, family dinners and quiet evenings. It would mark the hours of my life just as it had marked Victor's, witnessing the creation of something meaningful and enduring. As I prepared for bed, my phone buzzed with a message from Blake. He had just completed his first solo teaching session at the coding program and was excited by the experience. "I think I finally understood what Victor meant about valuing impact over image," he wrote. "Thank you for showing me a different way to define success." I smiled as I typed my reply, reflecting on how authentic connections and genuine purpose are the true indicators of a life well lived. The watch had captured my father's attention at that pivotal dinner, but what truly mattered was the philosophy it embodied, the realization that our value is not defined by our wealth, but by our actions and their effects on others. Have you ever experienced a moment when something you owned revealed more about you than you expected, or a time when others' perceptions of you shifted dramatically due to new insights? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey towards genuine success resonated with you, I would appreciate it if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel for more tales about discovering real value in a world fixated on appearances. Keep in mind that the most valuable possessions we have are not defined by their monetary worth, but by the significance they carry in our hearts. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, may you always recognize your true worth beyond any figure in your bank account.